For this session, please welcome Subhro Bandopadhyay, who we also met yesterday. He is the author of 4 full-length poetry books and a biography of Pablo Neruda written in Bengali. He received the 2013 Sahitya Academy Yuva Puraskar and the Antonio Machado Poetry Fellowship from the Government of Spain in 2008. He has published several poetry collections in Spain and has been invited to distinguished poetry festivals, including the Medellin International Poetry Festival, Colombia and Exposia, Spain. He teaches Spanish at Instituto Cervantes, New Delhi. Please join me in extending him a warm welcome. Dolonchampa Chakraborty has been actively involved in the dissemination of Bengali language beyond the borders of the Indian subcontinent as an active translator, editor, and interpreter. She recently translated a short story titled Black Magic by Amar Mitra. She is currently the executive editor of online Bengali literary magazine www.bookpocket.net, which is trying to unite Bengali-speaking diaspora of divided Bengal. Currently, she is working on the writings of the border poets from across the world. Ramkumar Mukhopadhyay is a Bengali fictionist with 7 novels, 10 collections of short stories, 2 books on criticism, and 2 travelogues to his credit. His books have been translated into various languages, including English, Hindi, Rajasthani, Malayalam, Tamil, and Odia. He has received Somen Chanda Award of Paschim Bangla Academy, Bankim Chandra Smriti Puraskar of the Government of West Bengal, Ananda Puraskar of the Anand Bazar Patrika, Katha Award, among several others. Presently, he is a member of the Executive Board of the Sahitya Academy, President of Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad, and Director of the Vishwa Bharati Publishing Department. Please welcome him.
Warm, good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for coming today. For me today, it's a very mixed feelings that I have, emotions for, as I'm chairing this session, which is titled Brand New Bangla Beyond Tagore. For me, as I was growing up in the 90s, for me, listening to the Rabindra Sangeet, the most emblematic form of Tagore for any Bengali middle class was a torture. And we grew up, rejecting that tradition, rejecting that particular pressure from the families. And as I am here to talk about the changes after Tagore, changes of contemporary Bengali cultural scenario, it gives me a kind of nostalgic feeling. To begin with today, we have Dolonchampa to talk about the changes in the music, the scenario of music. Then we will have Ramkumar Mukhopadhyay, who will talk about the changes in fiction. And then I will come back to talk about the changes in Bengali poetry. To go to the music section, I must quote a Bengali band to start with. This band is, a representative of our generation, 90s. They wrote a song, like, as I said, with listening to Tagore was a torture for us as adolescents. And they did the same in their music. They rebel. Like, they have a very popular song, and in which they say, Tumi Shondhar Meghomala, Ami Gabbar Singh. So Shondhar Meghomala was a very, one of the most popular love songs ever written by Tagore, and they added a line to it, Ami Gabbar Singh, I am Gabbar Singh. Well, now it's time for Dolonchampa to talk about the changes in music after Tagore.
Firstly, I'd like to thank ILF Samanyay to give me this opportunity to talk here. Involving the personal nook and corners of emotions has always played an important role in Bengali music, especially in the songs of Rabindranath Tagore. However, Subhro was right now he was talking about the humor in Bengali poetry and songs, which was quite lost when we were growing up. Even in the times of Rabindranath Tagore and before him, there was a kind of a song that was known as Tarja Gan or Kobi Gan, which had this element of humor in it, mocking somebody or something or social issues that cannot be dealt because of some political aspects in it or some kind of complex social aspects in it. After Tagore, gradually that element got lost. In latter part of Tagore's era emerged Himanshu Datta. He was a legendary music composer. He had his training in the fields of classical as well as the folk gharana. His songs, in spite of bringing a new feel of modern era, retained some Rabindric features in lyrics as well as in melody. Politics has always played an important part in Bengali life, be it poetry or music. It took a significant turn during Shalil Chowdhury's time. It was still the pre-independence era, and he was a young man of 20. He played a momentous role in the revolution of Bengali music. He joined IPTA at the age of 20. His song, Story of a Rural Life, which was written in 1944. কোনো এক গাঁয়ের বধূর কথা তোমায় শোনাই শোনো রূপকথা নয় সে নয়. Loosely translated as, let me tell you the story of a rural woman. Please listen to it. It is not a fairy tale. Which talks about the dream of every woman, of a girl who has a happy life, happy married life with her husband. Whatever she dreams of or dreamed of before marriage, that suddenly got completely affected. She is robbed of every kind of happiness. That is kind of a story in music that still haunts us even in 2015. Other songs of Shalil Chowdhury was like, বিচারপতি তোমার বিচার করবে যারা আজ জেগেছে সেই জনতা. Oh judge, people who will judge you are united today. Or অবাক পৃথিবী অবাক করলে তুমি জন্মেই দেখি ক্ষুব্ধ স্বদেশ ভূমি. Oh world, you have surprised me enough. Since birth, I see that my motherland is troubled. All these songs left the comfort zone of personal emotions that are traditionally found in Tagore's songs. It basically opened a free zone for collective expression. Patriotism, as the natural trend of contemporary India in the 40s, was articulated in IPTA songs. In a fresh fusion of Eastern and Western classical music. The songs of IPTA formed a new generation of listeners among the mass with their powerful lyrics. Bijan Bhattacharya directed the legendary drama Nabanno, which means new rice. Harvest, based on the notorious Bengal famine of 1943. It was synonymous with the revolution and has been an unequivocal part of the last failed revolution of Bengal as well. Poetry and music took an indigenous turn when Gautam Chattopadhyay, along with a couple of his friends, introduced a concoction of baul and jazz with guitar, saxophone, and drum. He introduced a new kind of lyric which can be read as a poetry, or when applied with apt music, it can be identified as a song. It talks about the common masses problem, social problem, financial problem, or anything, or the melancholia, as well as the personal vacuum, loss, depression, desperation, deception. The name of his band, Mohiner Ghoraguli, is actually taken from an anthology by the great modernist poet Jibanananda Das. The name of the poem is Ghora, means horses. The second line of the poem is Mohiner ঘোড়াগুলো ঘাস খায় কার্তিকের জ্যোৎস্নার প্রান্তরে. Loosely translated as Mohin's horses graze on the horizon in the autumn moonlight. It was pretty similar to the urban folk movement which was led by Bob Dylan in 1960s. Mohiner Ghoraguli is the pioneer of Bengali bands in the new millennium, and their signature song is পৃথিবীটা নাকি ছোট হতে হতে ড্রয়িং রুমে রাখা বোকা বাক্সতে বন্দি. The world is growing smaller in the idiot box kept in your drawing room. A reflection on how television creates urban alienation. After Gautam Chattopadhyay, Kabir Suman, previously known as Suman Chattopadhyay, created basically a completely different era for Bengali music. He had earlier worked in radio networks in US and Europe during 1975 to 1979. He came in touch with Pete Seeger, Maya Angelou, and Bob Dylan's music influenced him greatly. He was also influenced by the Sandinista movement in Nicaragua. At a later part, he changed his name to Kabir Suman, using Kabir after Sheikh Kabir, a Bengali Muslim poet who wrote Vaishnav Padaboli. His work has been a major influence in the development of Bengali Jibanmukhi Gan. We call it Jibanmukhi, the song that takes you towards life. It talks about life, whatever it is, it teaches you to accept it, not run away from it. It is, since a major movement in Bengali music, most of his songs speak about social and contemporary other issues, and he has brought back the fun, the humor Subhro was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolon, for this information. I would like to add a few points to it. She was talking about Shumon. Shumon brought a very significant change in Bengali lyric, which was talking about the reality has come to Bengali lyrics, which started in the 40s with IPTA songs. Then eventually it was lost. In some of the, in that change was already happening in Bengali prose and in Bengali poetry. I'll come later to Bengali poetry, but I'll request Ramkumar Mukhopadhyay to talk about the changes in Bengali prose.
Friends, I like the title of this session. It is Beyond Tagore. And very recently I have edited one volume, one compilation of articles on Tagore. And the title of the book is Towards Tagore. So I edited one book which is called Towards Tagore, and here the topic is given Beyond Tagore. Tagore is between towards and beyond. Yes, modern fiction has come a long way from Tagore. Even in Tagore's time, Tagore was not that popular as a fictionist. Sharatchandra Chattopadhyay was much more popular than Tagore in Tagore's own time. Srikanto or Devdas, they were more popular than Gora and Chokher Bali. What was the sale of Tagore's book in 1920s? In 1920s, the total sale was 22,000. And Sharatchandra's sale was more than 5 times. And some people, even some readers, told Sharatchandra that we like your writings. Your novels are much better than Tagore's novels. And Sharatchandra said, you may, but you must recognize one thing. I write for you and Tagore write for us. There is a difference. That Sharatchandra was popular. Sharatchandra was popular with the readers. Sharatchandra wrote for the readers. But Tagore wrote for the writers. Because Gora, even, you will see, the Gora, at the time Anantamurthy was the president of Sahitya Academy. At that time, the Babri Masjid was destroyed. And Anantamurthy said, as writers, what can we do? Then Anantamurthy said, we will get the novel Gora translated into all the Indian languages. Because what is nationalism? What is patriotism? That we will be able to discover if we read Gora. Tagore is, in a sense, we have come a long way from Tagore. But at the same time, we are much more backward than Tagore. Because Tagore categorically wrote that nationalism is not an Indian concept. The nation, the word is borrowed from the West, European concept. And we are imposing that word on Indian society. And once we have accepted nationalism, then we will have to give some bird some name, national bird, national emblem, national song, national language, all national. And at the same time, you are ignoring all other things. India is basically a social structure because we had our community. Because it is multicultural. There are more than 3,000 languages in this country. There are so many religions. Now India, because it is not Tagore's India. Tagore's India was something different. Tagore died in 1941. So actually Bangladesh, Shilaidaho is in Bangladesh. Because Tagore family had their zamindari in Bangladesh, in Shilaidaho. Even in Odisha. But this India is different from that India. We freed it from the British rule. But at the same time, at that time, it was said that we will divide the country on religious lines. We have divided and we are happy. Even now, two countries are created. Even now, we find that the religious problem is not solved. And some people thought that religion is the most powerful cementing force. Then how Pakistan can be divided? How Bangladesh can be created? Because they belong to the same religion, Bangladesh and Pakistan. So Tagore raised this question at that time. Once again, we are facing this problem in our time, in this year. The same question we are facing. So Tagore is relevant. We can't go beyond Tagore. And you have perhaps seen that people are quoting Tagore when they are returning their awards or criticizing some organization. So Tagore is, in this way, Tagore is relevant. He could foresee what will happen today. But I will say, Indian fiction, Bengali fiction, in Tagore's time itself, had a parallel run. As for example, Vibhuti Bhushan Bandopadhyay, perhaps you have read the English translation of, or the Hindi translation of Pather Panchali, or you have seen the film of Satyajit Ray. So Pather Panchali, so Tagore was invited, asked one of the professor of the university that he request Vibhuti Bhushan Bandopadhyay to join our school, that is Brahma Vidyalaya. Then Vibhuti Bhushan sent a long list, Vibhuti Bhushan Bandopadhyay, that what is the price of potato, brinjals, chili, and all these vegetables in Bolpur market. And then Tagore said, then the professor handed over the letter to Tagore. Then Tagore said, write him that we don't need a Bajaj Sarkar who will purchase vegetables from the market but a teacher. We don't want him. You see the difference. Because Vibhuti Bhushan Bandopadhyay belonged to a poor family. He was teaching in a school. He had a meager income. And naturally, Pather Panchali is a novel of that sort. Pather Panchali questioned these things. Or Ashwini Sanket. Ashwini Sanket, the famine is nicely described there because Vibhuti Bhushan faced it. Vibhuti Bhushan could not write Gora or Chokher Bali. Vibhuti Bhushan could not write or did not like to write Chaturango. And Rabindranath could not write Pather Panchali because they belong to different income groups, to different cultures, and to different philosophies of life. So Tarashankar Bandopadhyay, because they were all alive, because some of them were born in the 80s, 90s. They were junior to Tagore by 30 years or 40 years. Tarashankar Bandopadhyay went to Shantiniketan to meet Rabindranath Tagore. And Tarashankar Bandopadhyay and Tagore thought that he is a tribal man, that he may be a Santal person. You see, from the appearance itself, Tarashankar's appearance was totally different from Tagore's appearance. If the appearance is different, then the literature is also different. And Tarashankar, this Hasulibake Rupakatha or Ganodevata, he was describing the life of the common people, of the marginals. He was describing the life of the scheduled caste. Karali is one of his important characters in Hasulibake Rupakatha, or the central character. Or you say, Manik Bandopadhyay, Manik Bandyopadhyay believed in Marxism. সে পদ্মা নদীর মাঝি, the boatman of the Padma, or even পুতুল নাচের ইতিকথা, or হারানের নাচ জামাই. You will see that actually philosophically they were different. And naturally their language is also different. It is not Tagore's language. For Tagore, nationalism was important, the freedom struggle, or just compare Tagore's Tagore's ঘরে বাইরে and শরৎচন্দ্র's পথের দাবি. Sharatchandra supported the armed revolution, Tagore opposed it. And the book was proscribed, Pother Panchali. And at that time, Tagore did not protest. Tagore wrote a letter that I would not protest because you wrote the book to record your protest. And the British people and the British ruler, they have recorded it, they have acknowledged it. So why should I protest? So you see, the attitude is totally different. পথের দাবি and ঘরে বাইরে. Or সতীনাথ বাদুড়ি, ঢোঁড়াই চরিত মানুষ. You see, actually the model is of Tulsidas Ramcharit Manas. Because this thing, Tagore never could write this novel because this man, he was Satyanath Bhaduri, he was born in Purnia. He was president of the district Congress committee. He led so many political protests. He was an activist. He resigned from his job as an advocate to participate actively in Indian freedom struggle. So he could write that book. And there are another important parallel books, Tagore, The Vigil. This book has been translated into English and published by UNESCO. The Vigil, Leela Rai translated the book. Satyanath Bhaduri's Vigil and Tagore's Chaturanga, totally different. Attitude is different, the treatment is different, the presentation is different. And just come to next to Mahashweta Devi, অরণ্যের অধিকার, or হাজার চুরাশির মা, because she is an activist. She is an activist supporting the day-to-day struggle, because here also you will see one book, what happened in Shingur and Nandigam. Mahashweta Devi's novel has been translated and this is being sold from this Bani Prakashan. So she is an activist, she is actively participating in this struggle and later recording these things in her writings. So we have come a long way, or Devesh Rai, Krishnabarer Brittanto, and moreover, it is not only literature. The country is divided, and then our partition, we face so many problems. Then the Naxalite movement in the 60s, late 60s, 70s, some of our writers were imprisoned, like Meenakshi Sen, Joya Mitra. They were imprisoned, they passed 3, 4, 5 years in jail. They participated in that movement and later they wrote. So actually the total attitude is different, philosophy is different. We wanted to change this society, class divided society. And now of my generation, Nolini Vera, Nolini, actually he belongs to Midnapur district. He describes that in his novel, he is trying to portray the life of the tribal people there. And in my own novels, I originally belong to a district called Bankura, very dry place. And Ramkumar, Bej and Jamini Rai, they all belong to that district. So in my novels also, because this dry reality, Tagore lived in Shantiniketan, but Shantiniketan is full of trees. But Bankura is a very barren land. And this literature, this dry literature, cannot be compared with Chokher Bali or other novels. So here we are different. And finally, I will say, but we are to go back to Tagore again and again. Because one thing, the question of nation. We believe that nationalism, without its connection with internationalism, is very dangerous. Unless you go to Bistro, unless you can't go beyond your own land. Tagore once nicely wrote, nicely said, that you say, I am a living being. I am not an animal. I am not a tree. But Tagore said, you should say, I am all. I am the living, I am the non-living, I am a man, I am a woman. That is the Ardhanarishwar concept that is very much Indian, very much rooted to Indian culture. We accommodate everything. We don't say that this is your religion, this is my religion. I am a Hindu, that's why I can accommodate all religions. Swami Lokesharananda, one monk of Ramakrishna Mission, very senior monk of Ramakrishna Mission, said, I am a monk, so I have no religion. I am a monk, so I have no country. I am a monk, so I don't belong to this world. Or you can say, I am all. If we can't say I am all, then we can't save our nation. So we will have to connect with the Vishwa, with the Nikhil. And because Tagore's novels, actually, they record these things, these ideas. And another thing, what is also very important, I feel, that somehow our development, our civilization, actually development means all high-rising buildings. There is a very tall, very high advertisement in the Times of India today that each floor, not each floor, each flat will cost you 10 crores in Mumbai. It is the tallest building in the country. So it is our development. Be the tallest. And for each development, we are abolishing, we are pushing back one tribal village. In the name of development, we are driving away the tribals from the forest, we are destroying the forest, we are polluting the rivers, we are polluting the sea. And this is our goal now. This is our development. PWD is now our brand ambassador. And PWD, they do all kinds of construction. Ecology has no meaning now for our rulers, for our country, for our planners. Tagore as a writer, Tagore as an individual, Tagore as a thinker, wanted the coexistence of this thing. So he introduced Bono Mahotsav. That is the festival of planting trees. Agriculture, holocaustion is there, but at the same time, monoculture. So a writer cannot and should not write only. He should think of all these things. He should also protest. As Tagore returned his knighthood in protest against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So a writer should be conscious, and that way, Here we will not go beyond Tagore. Here we will go towards Tagore. That a writer has a role to protest. A writer should save the environment. A writer should fight for ecology. A writer should fight for actual education for the children. A writer does not mean that he will write and he will enjoy royalty. That should not be the goal of a writer. So sometimes we may, yes, we will write in our own way. The time has changed. But at the same time, and another thing, now we are writing because we don't bother what people of other arts doing. But Tagore there, that Kala Bhavan and Sangeet Bhavan, and all this, he brought them all together. So other art forms, we must know other art forms. We must be, we must keep a relation with them. Because after Tagore, this in the late 30s, this anti-fascist movement, they could create a very good literature, and in theater also, in other forms, they could do, because they were together. So that is another, because some very good musicians came out of that movement. So similarly, we should be together now, and once again, I will come, because I will say, Tagore is still the bestseller in India now. He's more than 3 crores in each year. So the best-selling author now in India. So we should recognize this also. We must go beyond him, but at the same time, we will have to look back to him also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramkumar, for this wonderful visionary speech. Well, it's my turn to talk about Bengali poetry. Once I should start quoting a Mexican poet, Octavio Paz. He said, reducing a literary text to a social document is learning botany from Constable's paintings. That is probably an apt one-liner for Bengali poetry in the post-independence era. But Octavio Paz was writing from the western part of the world, and we live here in the eastern part of the world, and here the reality is different. A writer or a poet is engaged in many other things, like many other poets in Latin America as well. And for them, it was a fight for him especially, it was a fight to write beyond the social reality. And for us, it is transforming the social reality. In the 30s, when Tagore was still alive, Buddhadev Boshu wrote a poem called Sonnet 3 AM, and that the first line, only the private is holy. The soft light on the yellowing page of a book, the print. These 2 lines were the most emblematic lines after Tagore in the 30s, when modernity came to Bengali poetry. Buddhadev Boshu started a magazine called Kobita, and with that magazine, Bengali poetry evolved. In the 40s, it was a time for the turbulent partition and the social movements of Communist Party and other social realities. So in the 40s, the poetry changed once again. In the 40s, we had a major poet who deviated from the path that was started in Kobita, Mukhopadhyay. Whether the flowers bloom or not, it's spring today. And but his reality, his association with the Communist Party, with all the IPTA movement and everything was in his life. He tried to explore all the realities and he explored those themes in his poetry. Even in the 70s, when the Naxalite movements were taking place in West Bengal, he wrote a book called Chele Gache Bone. But after him, in the 50s, poetry took its definitive shape, and that was not the mere social reality. In the 50s, we had a major poet, Utpal Kumar Bosu. He said once in an interview that Tagore did not see the Second World War, he did not see the partition, he did not see the refugee colonies. For the poets of the 50s, the reality was completely different. But they were also determined not to write a newspaper reportage. In Bengali poetry, since the 50s, if you write a newspaper reportage or if you start writing, taking a social issue, is like you normally do not get a good audience. I must quote Utpal Kumar here. It's a poem called A Portrait of Nature, 1963. I write these letters for illiterate prostitutes in this desolate 63. Miriam, in your garden, in your cotton yard. The God-sent donkey strolls alone, these illiterate prostitutes. I write letters for them without old-fashioned landlords, their middlemen, beside the dense grove in this desolate 63. Is anyone peeking at my irresistible reading game? This tense self-doubt. Are you sure, Miriam? It is not understood at this dawn when I can hear the swan by the window stream. In the 50s, Utpal had many other companions who started Krittivash. Sunil Gangopadhyay was a founder of Krittivash and the movement of Krittivash. He had Shakti Chakraborty, Sharat Kumar Mukhopadhyay, among others. But we had a major voice from another part, Kobita Singho, probably the first prominent and a major woman voice in Bengali poetry. Ishwar ke Eve. Eve speaks to God. I was the first to realize that which rises must fall inevitably. Like light, like dark, like you, I was first to know. Obeying you or disobeying means the same. I was first to know. I was first to touch the tree of knowledge, first to bite the red apple. I was first to distinguish between modesty and immodesty. By raising a wall with a fig leaf, I changed things totally. I was the first. I was the first pleasure my body controlled, the first sorrow. I was the first to see your face of a child. 60s again was a decade of hungry generation movement. We call them now hungryalist. 60s is a decade where the poets started writing against all the political and, well, some sort of anarchist views that they had. Because in the 68, the Naxalite movements started. But before that, the hungryalist movement started in the 60s, 1967. Well, Utpal was a part of that movement. And we had Malay Rai Chaudhuri, among others. And we also have another 50s poet, Binoy Mujumdar, who is immortal in Bengali literature just for one book, Fire Esho Chaka, a wonderful collection of love poems dedicated to the legendary literary theoretician Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak. That he was, they did not meet ever, but he was in love with her in the college, and he wrote an entire book dedicated to her. Then came the 70s. 70s is the decade of complete, Naxalite movements were brutally, all the movements were brutally killed by the establishments. The dreams were shattered. All the good students that we had at the universities were either in the jail or back home. And the dream of covering, encircling the city with the villages, that dream was completely shattered. But poetry, in Bengali poetry, 70s was a decade of covering, encircling the city or the capital, Kolkata. Till the 60s, till the 70s, poetry was Calcutta-centric. Most of the major poets were there in Kolkata, based in Kolkata, writing from Kolkata. But 70s witnessed the change. Most of the poets were coming from the towns, district towns of West Bengal. Many of them now well settled in Kolkata, but they started they wrote most of the significant writing from the villages. So they say, one of them, he says, the dream that was shattered in the 70s by the police, they made that dream true. They encircled, they could win the city, they could cover the city by the villages. Mridul Dasgupta is one of the major faces of that time. He writes, the sky is an eagle's black wing, and the river, extreme Tista. The geomagnetism has attracted the way El Partido Comunista. Or Subhro Sarkar, a voice from marginal refugee colonies. He writes, in class 9, I discovered that a light comes from my head in the darkness. This light goes back to my ancestors by penetrating me. After that, only noise remains, lightning, vapor, and the liquid planet Earth. I heard that every curse begins there. '80s is a mixed decade. Everything was settled down, no political, no major conflicts. We had a communist party ruling at the center, at the state center. Some sort of hope was realized. But in that decade, poetry took again, it was pluralist. Again, there was a Kolkata-centric poetry going on, but most of the writers, at the 70s that was started, and I said, in the 80s, the writers, many poets from many district towns started coming up. Most of the important poets of the 80s, like Sanjukta Bandopadhyay, or like Chaitari Chattopadhyay, all of them, they were from the district towns. 90s, my decade, is, I might say it in a negative way, it's a confused decade. Because we were the first to witness a major social change called globalization. Although we had a communist party ruling at the state, most of us were left-minded. But in the year 1993, like me, like many others, have seen a different change. The streets of Calcutta was covered with a red flag, but that was not the red flag of CPIM. That was the red flag of Coca-Cola. And that was a very significant change for all of us. I still can remember a street called Rashbiri Avenue. It was still an avenue with a tram line crossing the city. But all the stations, tram stops were covered with Coca-Cola flag. And that made that, so our poetry of our generation has changed from that point. And in our generation, the poetry, it started using many, the colloquial way of writing. We've started using English words, Hindi words, many other words. In a nutshell, the Bengali poetry of post-independence era is not a mere social document, and it's neither an ivory tower. Thank you.